Australia, and Peter and Strong occupied is going to give you an update on where they are now.
Thank you. When 2,000 people gathered on the steps of St Paul's Cathedral in October 2011, it signalled a mass demonstration against an unjust and unfair economic system that serves the very richest members of society while trampling over the needs and the rights of the poorest and most disadvantaged. It was a signal that people had finally had enough of a world where the moneylenders were triumphing and the meek were never going to inherit anything, never mind the earth. There are so many things that are wrong with our current economic and political system that it's difficult to know where to begin. On the environment, we treat our planet not as our precious home, but simply a source of wealth to be pillaged and rent. We cannot carry on as we are, because at some point we will suffer massive collapse of the natural systems on which our economies depend. Our insatiable thirst for fossil fuels is driving us towards irreversible climate change. And ridiculous when you consider that the development of green energy can not only provide all our energy needs, but also the jobs and industry our society so desperately needs. Our food supply is now based not on human needs, but the money-making schemes of big business. Recent food scandals and the obvious risks to public health show the folly of treating food production as just another global industry. We must defend small-scale food producers who are becoming virtual slaves to agribusiness and oppose big corporates like Monsanto with their genetically modified agenda. The other great injustice being perpetrated against the people of this country is austerity, with cutbacks to the unemployed, the disabled, single parents, the working poor, pensioners, the NHS, education, public services. The list is endless. But what is austerity, and why are we having this policy inflicted upon us? We are told that we're going through an economic crisis, the worst in a generation, and so politicians tell us that desperate times call for desperate measures. But this is simply a lie. The economic crisis has been greatly exaggerated in order to get the poor to accept even greater poverty, while the rich continue to get richer. We are consistently told that the national debt is too high, and if we don't take immediate steps to cut it down, we are doomed. What they don't tell us is that in the 321 years since the national debt was started, it has been higher than the current level for 205 of those years. That means that for nearly 2/3 of the time, the national debt has been greater than it is now. To say we are in an unprecedented crisis is just not true. Now, it is certainly true there is nothing wrong with trying to get the debt down, but there are many ways of doing it, and inflicting cuts on the poorest members of society is the most unfair of them. In the late 1940s, for example, when debt was no less than triple what it is now, the government increased the very highest rate of tax to 95%, after which debt steadily fell. And let's not forget that it was also during this period of high debt that the government was building the welfare state, not systematically destroying it as they are at the moment. So yes, the other main way to pay down the debt, rather than cutting spending on the poorest, is to increase taxes on the richest. However, successive governments have systematically refused to tax the rich. In fact, even worse, they allow them to avoid billions in tax. Why? Because rather than an economic crisis, it is our so-called democracy which is in crisis, with the politicians and policymakers either rich themselves and acting in their own interests, or else simply becoming pawns in the hands of the wealthiest members of society. Consider this: of the 29 members of the current Lib Dem cabinet, Conservative Lib Dem cabinet, no fewer than 18 of them are millionaires. Is it any wonder that they take care of their own interests first and society's disadvantage second? In addition, most of the Tory party funding comes from rich individuals and big business, funding that comes with a price that these donors expect government legislation to be enacted in their favour. And if you think that's typical of a Tory-led government, I'm afraid the Labour Party are a little better. Labour too receives donations from many rich businessmen, and only a couple of weeks ago it was declared that Labour had received £600,000 worth of free services from PricewaterhouseCoopers, the accountancy firm notorious for the assistance it gives to rich individuals to help them avoid paying tax. With funding coming from these corrupt sources, the unfortunate fact is that the Labour Party too is now sadly compromised. That is why we in Occupy have never been able to support any political parties, or even our current corrupt political system, which allows lobbying and control of the legislative process by rich business interests. This week, we heard that in the last 12 months, no fewer than 350,000 people needed to visit food banks in this country. That's 350,000 people who can't afford to eat. And yet also this week, we heard that AstraZeneca, the pharmaceutical company, has recruited a new boss and is giving him a £4 million welcome bonus. That's a £4 million payment before he's even done a day's work. How can anyone with an ounce of compassion, how can anyone with a heart, believe it's right that we have built a society where one person can be paid £4 million just for starting a job, while at the same time, in that same society, 350,000 people don't even have enough money to feed themselves? No doubt those people who believe in this current version of the capitalist system, who believe in free market economics, will say that it's all down to market forces. Well, I'm sorry, but if market forces mean one person can get £4 million, while another 350,000 people can't afford food, then there is something very, very wrong with market forces. That is why we in Occupy will continue our struggle, will continue our campaigning, until we have built a world where people are treated justly, people are treated fairly, and we have truly created a society that demonstrates this fairness and justice for all. Thank you.